And this is the Google Classroom experience. It is our playground experience. So it's a little bit different than our traditional settings in that we're going to show you a few things and then prompt you to jump in and kind of explore and play around and break it if you need to. But to become familiar with some of the things that we're going to show you as far as the student experience is concerned. For success today, we want to make sure that you are logged into Chrome, that you're using Chrome as your primary browser. As I mentioned, since this is a playground, we're going to play a little bit in Classroom. Um, Monica is going to show you the student experience, and I'm Kim, and I'm going to show you more of what the teacher does on the back end. So, with that in mind, you'll probably need to toggle between looking at WebEx, which is where you're looking right now, and going into Classroom. So, I'm going to give you just a second and a minute. I'll walk you through how to do that. If you want to take notes, um, if you want to take electronic notes on a doc or wherever you can, or of course, you can jot down your own notes on your paper. And we ask that you try to stay as engaged as possible with us when you when you're in the session. All right. I've kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit, but my name is Kim Robertson. I'm an instructional specialist with the technology training team. I'm not directly assigned to support a group of schools. However, I do support Noreen, Renee, and Ronlin, who support the charter schools as well as the high schools in the cluster. I'm also the instructional lead in our office, responsible for kind of the schedule for training for teachers and quite a few other things as well. So, my colleague will introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Monica Jenkins, and I'm also an instructional technology specialist with T3. And I also am assigned to support several clusters, or at least the trainers who are working with those clusters. So I support Tia, Ashana, Sarah, and Jake, who covers middle school. So it's between elementary and middle schools.
So, the session goals for today are essentially we're going to focus on the student experience and how the student interacts with work that the teacher shares in classroom. So, when we first go into classroom, we're going to do a little bit of kind of housekeeping as it relates to the teacher role, but then Monica will show you the student role and interacting with the assignments that the teacher has put in. Then we're going to go back to the teacher role and kind of see how that was impacted and go over some settings and things like that. So we're introducing or reviewing that whole process, that circular process that happens between the student and the teacher in Google Classroom. And this year, we've started a program where we're working to empower educators. So you may have seen a PGCPS Empowers logo. If not, you'll see it more and more. And with that, we're focusing our sessions so that some of the novice sessions, we'll say, what we call them charging up sessions, where you're learning kind of the fundamentals or the basics that you need to interact with integrating technology into instruction. So this session falls under that. We also have some plugged in or powered up sessions that operate in a slightly more elevated level as well. So you'll be able to learn more about that as time goes on. So, first and foremost, we're going to think about the teacher's role. And today we're making the assumption that the teacher already has his or her classroom created. The classroom has been set up, the teacher has created the classroom. They may need to have their students join the class. So we're going to talk through some of that a little bit. We are going to talk about maybe how to add a co-teacher, but the work of the teacher has already been done in terms of the assignments that they want their students to see. That has already been set up. So I'm going to kind of talk through a little bit about that and then invite you to jump in. Actually, before we even get to that, to make your experience a little bit better, I'm going to ask at this point that um, we're going to try to do a split screen so that you are able to see the WebEx on one side and then you're able to see your classroom on another. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that you go up to another tab next to your WebEx window if you have it, and just open a new tab in Chrome. And a quick way to get to Classroom is to type in classroom.google.com. So I'm assuming that you're already logged in. If you're not, that's okay, because it'll prompt you to log in. So all I did was open a new tab, and again, I went to classroom.google.com. And if you go there a different way through your mail, clicking on the apps launcher or that 9 boxes, that's fine too. But I'm going to have you just rest here. And then you'll notice that I also have my WebEx window open. So as it stands now, I would have to toggle between two windows. And that's kind of annoying for me to do that. So I'm actually going to show you how you might be able to split your screen. And there are a couple different applications and extensions that let you do this, but I'm just going to do it the old fashioned way. And I'm going to have my WebEx window open on one side. And I'm going to go up into the top right corner, and I'm just going to drag my WebEx window so that it's a little bit smaller on one side. And then where I open my Chrome Classroom window, I can actually click and hold that tab and drag it out. And I'm just going to put it next to my WebEx window. So I know some teachers are working on 2 and 3 monitors at home, but that may be a helpful way for you to see 2 screens. I'm going to pause and give you a chance to do that before I go on my spiel and talk about what we're going to see as teachers. I'm going to check chat, and feel free to unmute if you have a question or if you have something that you want to clarify. But again, I went to classroom.google.com in a tab in my browser, and I have my WebEx window on one side, then I have my classroom on another. So that's how you're going to stay. But I recognize that it may be hard to see my window that way. So I'm actually going to cheat, and I'm going to make my WebEx screen larger just to be sure that you can clearly see what we're demonstrating on the screen, okay? Jumping back into my teacher role of kind of what we're going to talk about first, we're assuming that the teacher already has the classroom set up. We're assuming that the teacher already has his or her assignments in the class, but they may need to invite a few other people to join. So as a reminder, you can invite co-teachers to your class. They have to have a Prince George's County email address. When you invite them, they go into their email and accept the address. Um, Essentially, a co-teacher in a class can do everything that the person who created it can do, except delete the classroom. They're never able to delete it, but they can do everything else. And of course, your students now have 3 ways to get into Classroom. Your students can either get a classroom code shared securely with them. We would never post this on our website, or we don't post it online on social media. We post it in a secure way if we can. The reason for that is because anybody with a PGCPS email address can join your class. You want to ensure that only your students who are assigned to be with you are actually the ones that are joining your class. What's new this year is a sharing link. So you could actually post a link somewhere that students can click and join their class. And then, of course, you can invite them, but you have to have their PGCPS emails. Your parents cannot join your classroom as students. I'll talk to you about how your parents can get in after Monica goes through the student part. So essentially, I'm going to show you these 2 things at this point by having you join my class. So jumping into my classroom, I have a classroom here that's called T3 Playground. So I'm going to give you 2 ways that you can join my class. You can either enter in the code. So if you're in the classroom in the window that I showed you, classroom.google.com, you're clicking on the plus in the top right corner and you're typing in this code, or I'll do the new way that they've just added by putting the link in chat. So you'll notice that the link is there in chat. If you click on it, you'll go directly to it and join my classroom. And I'll just mention while you're joining that as a teacher, I've already kind of gone in again and put in some work. So Monica is going to show you around the classroom as a student. You're a student, but she's going to talk you through some things as a student as well. She'll talk you through what you see on the stream, what's shared in the classwork tab. She'll talk about the people tab as well as how to turn in your work and what that looks like. All right. All right, so hopefully at this point, everyone has joined the class, either with the code or the link in chat. And I am going to switch and give Monica access as a presenter so that she can share her screen.
So before we go through the classroom, I wanted to just talk a little bit about what we're going to see. First thing you'll see when you go into the classroom is the stream. And so on the stream, that's where the teacher will set any announcements that they want to post for the class to see. And there's some different options of how the teacher can set that stream to be organized or set up. And we'll talk about that later. But know that you'll see there any announcements that the teacher is posting. There's also a classwork tab, and that's where the students go to get all of the work that the teacher has posted for them. So you might have assignments that are there that are Google Files, things that are PDFs. We'll talk about those. And there's different ways to share content with our students. So we'll take a look at some of the assignments that we have there for us. And then we'll also talk about how, as a student, how can I see everything that I have due? All right. So I'm going to jump over now to the classroom so that I'm in the same place that you are as a student. All right, so we should be seeing now that the same thing on my screen that you have on your screen. We're looking at it as a student. All right, and here on our stream page, this is where I can see that information that I talked about. I can see that Kim is my teacher, and she has posted a welcome to the class. I also see a little box underneath that says that I can add a class comment here on the stream. So if I wanted to say hi, I could type in hi and then hit my enter key, or click over here to the right-hand side at the end of that comment box and click post. Right, so now it's there as hi. So if you want to add a class comment, you can do the same thing. You can type in hi and then press return or enter on your keyboard, or select the triangle and introduce yourself. Okay, so again, that's here on this first page of the stream, and all I did was come down to where I see that first welcome announcement. And then I have a box. Mine says T, has a little logo that says T3 because that's who I'm logged in as right now. Yours may just have your icon, like I can see. Some people are already putting in and saying hello. Also here on the stream, I'll notice that I have a box over in the left-hand side that says upcoming. These are my upcoming assignments that I have due. So a student can see anything that they have for that class that is due if the teacher has put in a due date with that assignment. So all of these assignments have a due date, so I can see and a time of when they need to be submitted by. So now if I scroll up and go back to looking at my different tabs that I have, before I go to the classwork tab, let's take a look at the people tab. So when I go to people, this is where I can see my teachers for the class. And if I needed to contact them, this is one way that I could do that by clicking on the envelope and opening up mail to send them an email. And this is also where I can see all of the classmates. So I can see everyone else that is here and has joined our classroom. And remember, if you haven't joined the classroom yet, but you would like to now, Kim has put in chat for us the link to join the classroom. So you can still join it. All right, now I'm gonna hop over to the classwork tab because again, that's where most of the work is going to occur. That's where I'm going to see all the assignments from my teacher. So let's select classwork. That's that middle tab. And here I see the assignments listed. The first thing that I'm going to notice over on my left is that I have some topics. I have week 1 and I have resources. So my teacher is trying to organize the classroom for me so that I can easily identify what things I need to do. So they're doing it by weeks here. It could be by subjects, depending on the classroom. And then I also have a section that's just for resources, things that I may need to get to on a regular basis. If I wanted to, as the year goes on, this classwork page becomes very full. So there's lots of things going on the classwork page because every post that comes here from the teacher is going to be on this classwork page. So if I just want to narrow it down, I can click on the word resources under topics, and then it only shows me the things under that particular topic. So now I'm just looking at the resources. Right? If I want to get back to all of my topics, I can click on all topics. So if you're in the classroom, try clicking on one of the topics just to see how it filters just for that particular topic. And then after you're done trying to filter for a topic, go back and click on all topics. All right. So hopefully we're now all back to all topics. And we want to look at some of the assignments that our teacher has given us. So the teacher has organized the assignments by numbers. So Kim has our assignments here for what we're supposed to do first, second, and third. Let's start with our first assignment, sharing PDF documents. So I'm going to select the title of that assignment. Here I get a quick view of any instructions that my teacher has listed for me. I can see that I have a due date for this assignment that is due at 5:30 p.m. And I see that there is a PDF document attached to this particular assignment. If I want to see more, I can click here at the bottom where it says View Assignment. So this now takes me to the assignment page. So go ahead if you're in the classroom and also click on View Assignment so that you can get to the assignment page. Once I'm on the assignment page, I now can open my PDF document that my teacher wants me to complete. So I just click on that document and it's going to open up. Now that it's open, I'll notice that I can't actually edit this. So I'm clicking around and I see that I'm supposed to find the perimeter and area of each rectangle. However, I can't write on these lines. So I could try, if I come up to where it says open with, I could try to select that drop down and see if I could open it with Google Docs. And let's see what happens if I try and open this PDF with Google Docs. So it's going to try and convert it for me. And it doesn't look like, okay, here we are. When I scroll down, I don't have my rectangles anymore. My numbers are all jumbled up. So this is not going to help me to complete that assignment by converting that PDF to a doc because it didn't read it appropriately. So in chat, do you have any ideas of what we would do if we needed to complete this document in a PDF? Or you can unmute yourself and just say if you have an idea of what we might be able to do.
Use Acrobat.
Acrobat, if we had Adobe Acrobat, we could probably do that. Kami, I see someone has Kami. So yes, if you're familiar with Kami, the teacher could have put this up as a Kami document and then we could complete it. And as a student, if I don't know about any of those other things, I may choose to just write it down on paper and then take a picture and send it to my teacher. But I can't actually type on this PDF. So that's one of the things that we wanted you to see, is that you can't just, the student can't just type on the PDF as it is right now. So
can you make a copy?
I could make a copy, well, but I still need it to be editable. So that's the only thing, need to be editable. So Kami could work, and Kim will talk to you about some other possible solutions as well when we flip back to that teacher side. All right, so we're going to go back to our classroom page. So you'll notice that this opened with kind of a black screen behind it. I can click on that arrow to the left to return to my classroom. Now, what else I might do while I'm here is, okay, let's say maybe I did do it on a piece of paper and I want to take a picture and send it to my teacher that way. Over here in the section that says your work, you'll notice that we have a button that has add or create. So here I could add a file. So if I did take a picture and I have a file that's either just an attachment or something in Drive, I can attach something to show that work to my teacher. I could also send a private comment to my teacher. So you can try sending a private comment as well if you needed to ask the teacher a question. Okay. But the most important thing from the student's perspective is when I'm done with an assignment, I need to select Mark as done. Because I couldn't edit on this particular PDF, I have to select Mark as done. I don't see what's called turn it in. We only see Mark as done. So make sure if you're in the classroom, take a moment now and click Mark as done. It's going to give us a little pop-up to ask us, do you want to make sure? It says, oh, you didn't attach any work. Your teacher's just going to see that it's done. Yes, I want to click Mark as done. Okay. So now my assignment is done and I want to send my comment as well. So again, I can click on our little triangle over here to post or just click enter. Actually, I need to click on that triangle to post. So I've sent my private comment as well. If I needed to unsubmit work because, oh, I got some more directions and now I want to unsubmit, I can select unsubmit as long as the due date and time has not passed. All right, let's return back to our classroom and look at another assignment. So we're now going to click back on the title, T3 Playground Google Classroom, to go back to our class. And now I can go back to that classwork page. And we're going to go down to number 2, our second assignment, sharing in Word. I'm going to do the same thing, open that assignment and go to View Assignment. So if you would do that as well, you're going to open up assignment 2 and click view assignment. And now I have a Word document that my teacher has posted for me. And this one is supposed to allow all of us to be able to edit that file, but it's done in Microsoft Word. So again, I can open this file and I have a similar background with this kind of gray-black background. So again, I can try and open it with Google Docs. And see what happens. Okay, so for this one, it comes over and it's not all jumbled up this time. However, when I go to type, and I do have a cursor there, but when I try and type in here for my definition, it's popping up for me to type inside of this drawing box because when it converted it, it made it an image. And so I still really am going to have some trouble with trying to edit in this document because everything is a drawing here. So again, it's maybe not the best way for me to answer this particular vocabulary framework that I'm trying to do, this template. So this opened up a whole new tab for me as the student because I converted it to a Google Doc. If I want to get back to my classroom, I have to look for my tab that has that 002 sharing in Word to go back to that assignment. And then again, I click on the arrow key and I can see that maybe that Word one did not work as well either. I have those same options as marking it as done, adding or creating, and sending a private comment. I also didn't mention that there also is class comments. So class comments can be seen by all the students in the class for that particular assignment. Private comments are only seen by the teacher and the student that sends it. Again, I can click mark as done and choose. And we're going to return back to our classroom, our classwork page again. We're still in the classroom, but we're going to click on that classwork page and look at our third assignment. Now this one, sharing Google assignments, this is sharing an actual Google Slides presentation. So again, we're clicking on View Assignment. I'll give you a chance to go ahead and click on View Assignment. And this time, our teacher has shared it with us so that each one of us is going to have our own copy of the assignment. So you'll notice that over in the Your Work section, I now have a template over here that I can access. So I'm going to click on that template and you can do the same. Give you a second to click on the template as well. And as it's opening up for you, take a look in the upper left-hand corner where the title of the slide is listed. You should see at the very beginning of that title your name. So for mine, it has Google User 1 because that's the account that we're in. So that is the name, but yours should have your name there as well. So each one of us has our very own copy of this template. And that means we can now edit this and go through the template. So we could do the problems that are here and add some information. Go ahead and take a moment and kind of click through some of the slides that are here and see if make a change on one of the slides. You can edit any one of the slides. Okay. Maybe I want to put so now we've done our work. We're working in this journal and we want to turn it in to our teacher. We've added something on a slide. It doesn't matter what you've added, just try and add something on that one of your slides. Again, since this is a Google template, it opened up in its own tab if we're in Chrome. So we can close that tab by clicking on that little X. Google saves things automatically, so we don't have to worry about clicking on a save button, and we don't have to worry about sharing it because our teacher already gave it to us. So we have that. And I'm right back to my assignment. If you're not back to your assignment, you want to look for the tab that says 003, Sharing Google Assignment. And now, instead of mark as done, we have a different button here that says turn in. So we can actually turn in this assignment to our teacher. And now it's attaching my template to turn the work into my teacher. So I'm going to select turn in. And then again, I want you to do the same thing. If you're in our classroom, go ahead and select the turn in button. And then turn in your assignment so that later on we can see what happens on that teacher side. And again, we can always unsubmit as long as it's before that 6:30 due date and time that was listed. And also here, I can see how many points this assignment is worth. So this is going to be worth 100 points for me doing my work. So then we're going to return to our classwork page again. And now I can see that here on my classwork page, well, when I first logged in, I only had 3 assignments. But since we've been here, my teacher has assigned some additional work for us to complete. So those assignments came in right away. I can see them here in the classroom on my classwork page. And then before I turn it over to Kim, I'll also show you that you can sometimes also see it in your email. So every time an assignment comes through, a notification is sent. All right, so now I'm going to take a look at this next assignment that we have 004 and looking at sharing a Google assignment. Now this one has been set up so that we can all edit the file at the same time. So we're going to click on View Assignment. And we are going to select our drawing assignment. And I do see a question from Ms. Nelson. Can you return work to students and have them resubmit? Yes, so if they've submitted it and you take a look at it, you can return it and then they can resubmit. Again, as long as it's before that due date time. All right, so I'm going to open this assignment that we can all edit together. So if you would join me by clicking on that drawing assignment, and I see several of us are here. So my classmates are all here with me. And for this assignment, our teacher wants us to try and drag and drop the icons to go with the correct statement. So which one would I use for storing and sharing resources? I could drag and drop one that I feel goes there. And we can all work collaboratively on this particular assignment. And we can see how things are coming in. Now, I know it's working so smoothly and nicely, but know that the first time that you may do this with students, it may not. They may be going over each other, but it's okay. It's a learning process for all of us. But we can all work together for our assignment. Now, because this assignment is one that we're all working together, when we go back, we have to show how that we've done this assignment. So now I'm going to ask, we've completed our drawing assignment. We've put in the icons that we feel is going in. Our teacher is there and she's adding some comments for us and putting comments over there on the side for us to see. But we are ready now to return back to our Google Classroom so that we can say that we've done this assignment. So again, we can close this tab because it opened up a new tab that has drawing on it. And we can close out of the tab to leave that document and go back to our class page where it has the assignment. And this one says mark as done because this is something we did together. So Turnitin is when it's my own file that I'm working on and I'm turning it in. Mark as done is things that maybe I just viewed or that we did collaboratively. So I can, again, say mark is done. I can add class comment. And submit that. And then I can mark as done. Let me click mark as done. Right? Same thing each time, but just different types of assignments that we have been given. Right, so we're going to go back to our classwork page, and I think we have one other type of assignment that we wanted to look at or question. So we're going to click on that classwork. And this time we're going to go down to our 5th assignment. And this one is a question that has been posted for us. So we're going to click on that question and we just have to respond so I can't see the whole question here. And I noticed that there's no due date for me. So I don't have a due date to turn this one particular in. However, I want to see the whole question. So I need to click where it says view question underneath those answer choices. All right, so now when I come into my question, here I can see which makes the most sense to share assignments when you expect students to respond. And then I have my different choices. So go ahead and make your selection for which one you think is the best way to share assignments with students, the PDF, the Word document, or a Google Doc, where students get their own copy or edit. If you don't see that 5th assignment, you may need to just refresh your page in your browser to make sure that it comes through for you. Give everyone a chance to...
You can unmute just to correct something. That particular assignment was a differentiated assignment. So everyone did not get the same assignment. So if you don't see question 5, it means that your teacher did not assign you that question. But no fear, you'll have an opportunity in just a minute.
Okay, so I saw that assignment because it was assigned to me. However, you may not see that assignment if it was assigned to you. Even though we're in the same classroom, I was chosen to get that question. Now I'm going to answer and turn it. And I can see that other people, how many people have also put in. All right. So we've gone through several different types of assignments that are here. We've looked at several different things as a student. One other thing there's some other things we wanted to show as we're moving a little bit beyond just the assignments, But as the year is going on, or just for students to help keep themselves organized in what they need to do, they have a couple of options here. One is to select view your work. So maybe I want to see, did I complete everything I'm supposed to complete? I can click on view work. And here it's going to show me everything that I was supposed to do and the fact that I turned things in so that I have actually submitted the things that I needed to submit. If some of my work has been returned to me once our work has been graded, I'll be able to see any items returned and the grades there. And then if things are missing because maybe it's past the due date and I didn't turn it in, I'll be able to see any missing assignments that I have. So again, this is nice for the student to be able to kind of look and see what things they need to complete, what has been returned, and what things are still outstanding. To get back from this page, I have to click again on that title to get back into my classwork. Also here across the classwork, now I see Meet here. So if you're using Meet with your students for your live lessons, you can post the Meet link right within Classroom. And Kim will talk to you a little bit more about that, but we can see that it's here. And then I can also see the Meet link on the stream page. So that can be posted right before it's time for us to meet. And I know that this is the way I can join my teacher for the live lesson. Okay. I also have a built-in calendar, and you can see how quickly our teacher was able to also remove that Meet link. So as soon as that meeting is over, that Meet link needs to be removed so the students can't go back in when it's not time for those live sessions. All right, so I also have the ability to click on the Google Calendar so that I can see assignments that way. So when I click on the calendar here, I can see when things are due and the assignments that I have. So that's built in for every Google Classroom as well. And again, that opens in a new tab. So I can close it out and I'll return back to my classroom. And then lastly, there is a class drive folder. Students really don't have to go there too often because everything that they are doing is here attached to those particular assignments. Just know that everything is also being saved in Google Drive in a folder. All right, so before we turn this back over to Kim to look at the teacher side, I wanted to take a moment and go back to the main dashboard page that students see when they first go to Google Classroom. So to get to that, I'm going to select the 3 lines on the left-hand side and select Classes at the very top. So when I first log into Classroom, this is where I will see all of the classes that I am a part of. And if my teacher has included an image there, I'll see the teacher listed for each one of those classes. And any assignments, we've already completed our assignments, so I don't see that here. But if I look over to some of these other assignments, I will see, oh, I have something due on Friday for these 2 classes. And this year, Google also added a to-do list here on our main dashboard. So this is to help students with multiple classes trying to keep track of everything that they need to do, to be able to click here where it says to do. And now I can look to see all the things that I have to complete across my different classes. So not just in the one classroom that we were in, but in all of my classes, I can see what's due this week, next week, and later. I can see assignments that are missing for all of the classes that I'm in. And here's the ones that I have missed, and I need to go back. And then I can also keep track of everything that I have done across all of my classes and the things that I have turned in. These are the things I've done early, assignments that I've done earlier on. So that is our student side if you have any questions about what we saw on the student side, as I'm sharing back with Kim to let her present, please include them in chat so that we can try and answer.
We're going to rewind and kind of make some connections for you. Is the the teacher side. There was a request to speak really quickly about how to create a class, so I will take some time to do that as well. But on this side, we are going to talk specifically about, in addition to creating the class, I want to think about how you prepare the assignments and just getting things ready. As you were able to see with the PDF and the Word document, they weren't necessarily the best options for students to interact, but we want to talk about like what you could do in advance to prepare those assignments so that it's possible for students to interact with them. We recognize that since Google Classroom is a Google product, it works best in terms of interaction with other Google things. So it could be a document, which is very similar to Word. It could be a slide, which is very similar to PowerPoint. It could be a drawing, which was that drag and drop activity that you all did. You might be familiar with Jamboard. There are other things that Google natively uses that work best when using Google Classroom. And of course, there are third-party applications. There could be a video that you want to share. There could be a story online that you want to share as a link in Classroom. Or perhaps you're using tools like Pear Deck or Nearpod or Edpuzzle or other third-party tools to build your lessons. Those work well as well. And I want to just go in and review some settings just to be sure that you understand about when to view, when to give everyone a copy, or when students can all edit. We also want to review some stream settings. You might have noticed that when you said hi on the stream, I had to post a comment first or add a post first, and then you were only able to comment on that. However, there are some settings that you can control and maybe give a little bit more control back to your students as the year progresses. At the beginning of the year, honestly, they're all trying to figure out, what can I do to annoy my teacher? What can I do to break this? What can I do to make things go wrong? Now, I'm not saying everybody is doing that, but I'm sure you have a few. So we want to just talk about some of those settings to help ease your conscience a little bit while you're trying to figure out distance learning. We also are going to talk about on the classwork tab, again, those options that I shared when I shared assignments about viewing, editing, or making a copy. I want to point out that the calendar is only active when you put an assignment with a due date. The question, you might have noticed, did not have a due date, therefore it didn't show up on the calendar. So making that connection for you, and then talking through other things that can be shared on the classwork tab, such as topics. Like, I see your question, Ms. Butler. Your topics are getting a little unwieldy. So what are some suggestions or ideas? And maybe that's a conversation that we can have about some ideas for organizing topics. It could be by content area. If you're an elementary teacher, you might have one for math, social studies, science, or it could be, if you teach secondary, it could be by like America, if I'm a U.S. history teacher, maybe I'm teaching the Civil War, U.S. history, whatever. So you might decide what topics work best. Or it could be something like, this is homework versus classwork versus asynchronous work. So you can kind of decide what might work best for you. But that's just a quick thought to think through. We're going to look at how to review work, how to give some feedback, how to grade it and return it. Ms. Nelson, because you had a question about one of your assignments, you might have noticed that I kind of added a private comment and returned it to you already. But for those of you, you're going to be able to see that process and how that work that you just did has been returned to you. And then some additional settings where possible. We do have a full-blown Google Classroom class. So if I'm not able to get through this content before 5:30, I'm going to make sure to direct you where on our website that you'll have the full-blown Google Classroom class. But we have some additional settings to kind of talk through, like how I was able to enable the Meet link so quickly and how to hide it so quickly, as well as especially if you're a co-teacher, you might not want your email to blow up with a whole bunch of notifications. So how do you adjust those notifications? So one's for your individual classroom as well as your overall classes. So let's take some time to jump in, and I'm going to jump back to the class, and I'm going to start from the original screen when I click on the title and I'm able to see classes. But because there was a question about how to create a class, I'm going to go back one step further, and I'm going to go back to classes. So for you, if you want to follow along with me, if you're not familiar with creating a class, feel free, or just watch this part. I'm just responding to a question that was asked of me earlier in chat. All right. So essentially, what you're going to do from this screen, and you can get to it a couple of different ways. You can get to it from your mail, from the 9 boxes that show up at the top of your mail tab, and just click on Classroom. Or the quick tip that I just showed you is classroom.google.com. As long as you're logged in, it will bring you directly here. And you'll notice all the way in the top right corner, let me make my screen a little bit smaller. All the way in the top right corner, you'll notice a plus sign. If you click on that plus, you'll see Join Class or Create Class. Every once in a while, as the teacher, you might go to the plus and not see Create. If that happens, simply put in a help desk ticket. Sometimes if you move from school to school, the Create option disappears for you, but it's a quick fix, and the help desk and T3 can assist you with it. But essentially what you're going to do is click on the plus, click Create Class. Again, you don't have to do this part. You name your class. We recommend that you don't reuse classes from year to year, right? So you might set up a classroom that you use from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. Some teachers create classrooms for specific purposes. Maybe you're managing a specific group of students. So it might not be all year that you'll need it, but you manage it for a period of time. So you can decide, but think about like how you have your students scheduled in SchoolMax. That's kind of how you want them set up in classes. So you might not necessarily have your students in mixed groups unless you want. If you're doing something different with scheduling at your school, you can consider doing something different. But either way, section, subject, room is essentially information that you can add. Excuse me. But once you click create, it automatically creates a new class for you. And my computer is moving very slowly, but once you do that, it gives you a default kind of background based on what the title of your class is, but you can change the theme. You can upload your own theme. If you come back to our next section of leveling up your classroom, we'll talk about how to, some ways to decorate your class to make it look better. So I'm going to come out of this class because that's not where you are. That's actually where, I have no students, so I'm going to jump back into the classroom with you. So again, on the Stream tab is where I'm able to see anything that I have upcoming that has a date associated with it. I'm able to see any posts that I have created as well as any responses to those posts. If I wanted to, I could set this up so that the post that I have from the classwork tab, as well as any announcements that I create, all show up on the stream. You can make some adjustments and settings, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit later. If there's a post out of order, for example, maybe I wanted to remind my students to bring your journals to the next Zoom meeting, right? If I want to post that, of course, I could add to it. I could decide which students that it is posted to. I don't have to post it to all. But when I click post, that one will appear at the top of the list. Kind of like any social media site that you visit, it's the most current post at the top. But you can always rearrange the post if you actually you can rearrange the post by clicking on the 3 dots to the right of that option, and you can move it to the top. It kind of moves up one at a time. So maybe I want my welcome to be at the very top of my class at all times. I just simply moved it to the top. So now that my current post is down at the bottom, all right? I'm going to jump to the People tab and come back to the Classwork tab. On the People tab, you'll notice that I have myself and Monica's name as the co-teacher. I also see all of you as students. I don't see that envelope that you saw as students. Mine looks a little bit different. So I'm the teacher. I created the class, but Monica is the co-teacher. Again, she can do everything that I can do in the class except delete it. If I wanted to add another co-teacher, I would simply click on the plus, put in the name or the email address of that person I want to add, and click invite. They'd have to go to their email and accept the invitation for it to become live. I see in my classroom that I have 14 students who have joined. Remember, I gave you 3 ways to add students to a class. You could give them the code, which I showed you how to do from the stream. I forgot to point out where it's located, but it's right up here at the stream. So, they can join that way. Remember that I also use this invitation link to copy it and you clicked on it to join it. But the third way that you could add students to Classroom is from the People tab. If you had their names or email addresses, you could click on the plus and you could add their names here, right? It's a little bit more cumbersome, but you have more control over who adds. The students still have to accept your invitation, I believe, but they would be physically in your stream. So let's say I'm going to add one of my colleagues who probably going to look a little strange as to why I'm adding her as this class. But when I send her the invite, you'll notice that her name shows up in gray. It shows that she's been invited, but she hasn't physically accepted the invitation. When she does, her invite will become active just like your name's here, okay? Guardians, I'll mention that while we're here. So a guardian is essentially a grown-up, a parent or guardian associated with this particular student. If you share, let's pretend for a second that Miss Morris is a student in several classes, right? And maybe a different teacher has invited the guardian. That essentially means they've clicked on the invite, they put in the email address. It doesn't have to be a Google email address. It can be any email address of that particular student. And if I was going to put in my personal information, but I'm not today. But either way, when I invite them, what the parent can see is a summary of what the student has turned in for the week, any work that's missing. It's essentially a replica of what Monica was able to show you on the to-do tab. So that parent can get a weekly or a daily email that shows that information about that particular student. So if anybody invites the guardian, notice Clarissa, bless her heart, she's joined my class. If any student or any parent or guardian of a particular student and has accepted the guardian invitation, you don't have to resend it. So if you share students, you don't have to resend the guardian request each time. You'll automatically see their name associated or their email address associated with that student. All right. So that's a tip about guardian summaries. So I'm going to jump back to the classwork tab because that's where all the magic happened today. You'll notice that I have my topics already set up. I'll show you how to create a new one. I also have my assignments that I happen to have numbered, but I also have some assignments that I did not post. They're essentially saved as drafts. So I can put in assignments and we'll practice doing 2 different ones. Before I even get to this point, though, we talked about the fact that you have to think about the work that you actually want students to do. As you can see, the Word documents and the PDFs don't necessarily go over too well. But if I had, and I'm just going to jump back to my drive a minute, and I'm going to open that PDF. If I, as a teacher, tried to share this PDF, if I clicked open with the same and opened it with Docs, the same thing that happened to Monica would happen to me. It's not going to be any different. But I did hear somebody mention Kami. So we have purchased, we're in the process, we're still kind of smoothing some things out with billing, but we're in the process of making sure that Kami is available to you during the course of the year. It'll be available to you and students. If I were to open this with Kami, that would give me an option to annotate on a PDF. But right now, that option isn't available. Um, Cami allows a student to or a teacher to go in and make annotations on a particular PDF. So this is what I did to open this in Cami. I just wanted to point that out. We also have Smart Learning Suite online. Smart Learning Suite also allows you to open a document and annotate a PDF. This session isn't about SMART, but we do have 2 SMART sessions coming up in the month of October. So if you're curious about how to use SMART for that purpose, the vendor will come in and kind of talk through some ideas. But in its native format, a PDF is not the best option for having students annotate on their work. The other option that you saw was a Word document. I'm coming in as a teacher. I'm preparing all of this work in advance so that I can share it on the classwork tab. So for me, I would, if it's a Word file that I found, I would go ahead and um, create it so that it's already in a Word format for my students. So let's look at how that happens. I've opened my Word file, and then I'm going to open it with Google Docs. Again, the same thing that happened to Monica is going to happen to me, but I'm preparing the file in advance for my students, right? So what I could do to prevent them from having that weird drawing file here, I could just remove it all together so that they could simply type in this particular box. I would come in and make all the needed changes on my document before my students came in so that when they actually got the file, they could edit it better. Now, you might notice at the top of my document, it's still not completely a Google document. It's here as a Word document still. So the last step that I would do is to go up to File and Save as Google Docs. So this is me taking that Word file, making it a Google Docs file so that my students can come in and edit. So we'll practice with that in just a second so you can see that now that it's a Google Doc, I can change the title however I want. But I'll go ahead and share this with you as a Google document. And of course, the best way is to use Google Docs format in general. So if you're not familiar and you need some help with kind of how to use Drive and using Docs, you can go into New and you can create your own files if you want. Or there are a ton of places, and you can jot these 2 down if you want. There are a ton of different places that have templates. So honestly, if you're looking for a graphic organizer template, just Google graphic organizer Google Docs template or graphic organizer Google template. You can Google those things and you can find them online on your own. But 2 places that I want to point out. Here's one. Ditch That Textbook Templates has a ton of different graphic organizers and other game templates that are already in Google format. So when you go to click on any of these, you'll notice that this person has some Snapchat template games, Would You Rather template games. But when I click on 25 graphic organizer templates, notice that I can get a Google Drawings template easily if I want to from this is the Ditch That Textbook website. So that's a resource for you that you can simply, and notice I'm just opening the folder. And when I open the folder, I can come in and make my own copy of anything that's in here. All right, that's one resource. Another resource that has really good Google Docs templates is Slides Mania. That's probably more for teachers, but if you want to do like a presentation or to help you with organization, this person isn't an educator, but they are always putting together templates. So you can see kind of like an elementary weekly agenda template that all you have to do when you click on it is find the Google version of it, make your own copy, and you can edit it however you want. So as I scroll down, see that she has download PowerPoint or open in Google Slides. So if this was one that I wanted, I would just open it in Google Slides. As long as I'm logged in, I could click use template and I could edit it. All right. I've already gone in and I've created my work that I want my students to have. I have them in my templates. I've made my own copies. Remember that when you make your own copy of them, they'll end up in your Google Drive. As long as you're signed in, they'll end up in your Google Drive, right? So now I'm going to come to my classwork tab. I'm going to come back into Classroom, and I'm going to come into my classwork tab as soon as I find my class. All right, here I am. So I'm back in my classroom, and now I'm going to share work with you. So I'm going to click on Create, and I have a lot of different things that I could create. Assignments is mostly what you've seen today. At the end, a few of you, since I differentiated that assignment, saw a question, but you can also create a quiz assignment. A quiz assignment doesn't need an attachment to it because it's essentially creating a Google form for you. So that's more like a quiz or an assessment. Materials don't necessarily have due dates for them. It might just be a resource that you want students to create all the time. Now, if I'm a teacher who manages multiple classes, I can reuse a post. So let's say I'm a secondary teacher and I teach multiple US history sections. Instead of me posting the same assignment post each time, I can click on reuse a post. And what it does is it shows me a list of all of my classes. I can go into the class of the post that I want to reuse. I'm not going to go through it all today, but if I did, I'm in my class, I can take my post, and when I click reuse, it essentially is going to make a copy. If I tell it to any attachments that I have, it will make a copy of that post and send it to another class. So that's what reuse post does. And of course, topics, as you've seen, those are the larger categories that help me organize my class. I mentioned it a little bit before, but think about what works best for you and your students. You could organize um, by unit of study. You could organize by like the time of the day that you're working, right? Like an elementary teacher, I'm working on reading groups or reading now, and then later I'm working on, so you can decide what works best for your class and to how you organize your topics. But it does help you and your students kind of keep track of what you're seeing and what you're using. So for this one, I'm just going to add an assignment. And remember that I had that Word document, so forgive me in this case, but I'm just going to make this one assignment 6, and that's easy for me to refer to so that if I'm like online with my students, I can say, click on assignment 6, y'all. That's what I want you to do now. So that's just my way of organizing. You don't have to use that. But this is going to be my Word file. Of course, as a teacher, I'm going to give it a better example, but I can't talk and type at the same time. So this is our graphic organizer about our story. And then, of course, I will put in directions so that students know what to do. And then I'm going to click Add. Create means that I want my students to create their own, like Monica showed you the example where they where you took a picture of your math work and then added it to it. That's what Create would do. But in this case, I'm going to give them the work that I want them to complete. So I'm going to click on Add. I have all these options of things that I can add, but I'm going to use Google Drive. It opens to my recent files. There is my Google Doc format of my graphic organizer. This is the Word one. That's not the one I want to use. I want to use the Google Docs format. So when I click Insert, notice I have the option here where students can view the file. That means that you're not going to be able to edit it at all. It's just for you to look at. I could share PDF that way. Like if it's a story that I want my students to refer to while they're doing some other work, I could do that. I can edit the file. That means that all of you will come into the file at the same time, the same way that you did with the drawing where you were moving the little images into the boxes. That's everybody's editing at one time. Or make a copy for each student. That's what it looked like when you had the math journal, where each of you got your own name at the top and you all had your own copy. A note to you, if you, let's say that I'm finished and I go ahead and click assign, if if you try to come back and edit and change your mind later and decide that you want to make a copy instead, that option won't be there for you the second time. It's like make a decision at the beginning, because if you go back to try to edit the make a copy for each student, it's like one and done. You have your first chance to try it out. So in this case, I am going to make a copy for each of you. And then over here on the right hand side of my screen, here is where I can decide, am I sending this to my current class, which is where I want it to go? Am I sending it to all of my students, or am I going to uncheck certain names of students that I don't want to receive this assignment? That's what I did with the question. For those two of you who weren't able to see the question at the end, I tricked you. That's how. Nobody else knew in the class who I assigned it to. So you have that option to assign work to different students. So in this case, I'm just going to uncheck Clarissa's name. Everybody else's will stay. I have point values, but I can change the point if I want to. I can make it 10 or whatever I want. Just be consistent for grading purposes. It could be ungraded. I can put a due date here. Remember, the due date is what helps it to go on that calendar that Monica showed you. So for the sake of this one, I'm going to make this one due at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Okay, 7 a.m. And then here's my topics. So right now I have 2 topics already. And again, I put little emojis just for me. We'll show you how to do that at our part 2 of this class. But or I can just add it to one of these topics, or I have the option to create a new one. But I'm going to organize it so that it's under week 1. Rubrics, I'm not going to talk about just here, but you have the option to add a rubric. When I click Assign, you automatically see it on your Classwork tab, or at the drop-down menu, I have 2 options, or a couple options. I can schedule it. So maybe I know that I want this to be the first thing that goes out when my kids come in at 8:10. I could click on Schedule, and I could put in a date and a time for when I want this assignment to show up. It does not, it comes out automatically. You don't have to do anything else. If I click Save Draft, that does just that. It stays right here for you, and no one else sees it except you. You do have to come back in and edit it so it goes out, or you can discard it. I'm going to go ahead and click Assign and see if you can actually see this assignment. It's still assigning, but it's assigning. And while you're finding it, I want to point out that you'll notice that my assignment 6 shows up at the top of my list. That bothers me. I like mine to be in order. So just like I showed you from the stream, from those 3 dots, you can click on the 3 dots and either edit, delete, copy the link, or I can move it down. And you have to keep doing that. You have to keep clicking on those 3 dots and moving it down. But that's just kind of what I do. You don't have to. Otherwise, your assignments show up from bottom up, right? They show up in the order from when you posted them. So go ahead and see if you can click on assignment 6, and let's see if you can view the assignment, and let's see if you can edit the assignment at this point. All right, because of time, I'm going to jump into grading to point out how to grade and return work. All right. So notice that I have a grades tab. You do not, as students, have this grades tab. So I'm going to click on grades. And for me, there are a couple different ways that you can grade work. For me, this is easiest because I can quickly see what assignments have been submitted, which ones have not, right? So I can see that because I differentiated some of my work, the ones that say not assigned were never given to those particular students. If I see a grade there, that means that the student has turned in something, right? If I see no assignments here, it's likely that those students have not turned it in. Now, if I want to dig deeper and see exactly those assignments, and I'll start with, let's see, I'm going to start with your journal, I think. So when I clicked on, and let me go back and do that because I didn't even tell you what I was doing. But at the top of the screen, you'll see that these are actually the linked assignments and that you submitted or that you had to do. So when I click on assignment 3, which is your journal, it takes me to my view that I see all of my students. I'm able to see that 9 of my students turned in their journal and 6 did not. If I look on the left-hand side, I'm able to see exactly which of those students turned in their journals and which ones did not turn it in. I can also see that I remember that Miss Nelson actually turned it in, but I resubmitted it to her. So she hasn't turned it back in. That's essentially what happened. So now what I want to do is I want to review the work that my students have turned in. I can start with Miss Butler. I can click on her assignment specifically. When I click on it, I'm able to see the same view that she saw. I can scroll down. I can see any responses that she put in. If you're familiar with Google, you'll know that at any work you can add feedback directly into the document, but you also have this window over here on the right-hand side that you can add private comments. So great job. And realistically, I can post this comment if I want, and I can give her a grade. When I do that, I'm going to click return because it's reminding me that it's not returned. Ms. Butler can't see the grade until I click return. When I click return, it's reminding me, are you sure she's going to get her grade? Do you want to click return? Yes, I do. I'm returning it. And at the top of my screen, I can navigate. I see Ms. Butler got hers. I can go to the next student. Oh, sorry. It's reminding me that I didn't submit my comment. So I'm going to go ahead and click post because I put a comment on Ms. Butler's work. Now I can go to the next student with the arrows at the top and I can grade each one the same way, right? I also have a drop down menu right here and I could navigate. Like if I know, let me see what Miss Morris has been doing because she hasn't really been showing up every day. Just kidding. I know she's here. But I can jump to a specific student and grade their work. So you can see essentially how grading looks, but you have to return the work to the student in order for them to see the grade. All right. So this is how you can review one at a time. All right. So let's just pretend for a second that I'm done. I'm done looking here and I've looked at everybody's work. I can close out this tab and I can return to where I was by clicking on the title of my classwork. And I can come back to grades if I choose. And if I had reviewed everything on my own, I really could just grade from here. That's not necessarily what I recommend. I suggest that you go and take a look at the students' work and that you give them feedback because, of course, that's how they know they're doing a good job. I forgot to say this too. I could look for assignments for a student. So I just clicked on Miss Nelson's name and I can see all of the work, right? So I can see just from Miss Nelson's name what has been turned in, what's been assigned. And again, this is an example of what I shared with her. And then she shared it. She shared it with me initially, and I sent it back to her. So it's been sent back to her, which is why it has not been turned in again. But she would do the same steps that you did before to turn in the work. All right. So yes, I used the return button on. I didn't return everybody's work, but let me do it real quick so that everybody has some return work. I know you want your return work. So let me go ahead and return everybody's. And I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna return everybody's at one time. All right. I'm gonna I'm gonna give everybody. So that way you can see what return work looks like. All right. So I didn't put any grades, but you can see that when I returned them, 2 people got graded, 13 people didn't get grades because I didn't give you one, but I returned them all to you. That way you see the work. All right, in the last 3 minutes, I'm going to talk very quickly about closing out the session, but I'm also going to talk very quickly about some settings. So in the teacher's classroom, you'll notice that you have this settings gear up in the top right corner. When you click on that, you see if you need to rename a class, you can do that here. But again, don't make a new class when you have a new group of students. But down underneath the general section, here's where you have the invite code. You can get to it again. If for whatever reason you need to disable it, let's say that you have students who might have, like, all of your students have joined and you don't want any other student to join, you can disable it. Or if you've had students who shared your class code out and they just inviting their friends just for kicks and giggles, you can reset it so that they don't have the same code and it doesn't work anymore. So that's some options. Under the stream, remember that's the initial page that you see where right now students can post and comment. However, I have the option that students can only comment. So that means that I'm the one who posts and then you can comment on what I say. And then you have the option that I'm the only one that can post and comment. So if I saved it, you have that option. That might be how you want to start the year. And then as the year progresses, maybe you post and let your students comment on what you post. And then as you build trust and community, you have them post and comment because you're not as worried about what they might say. Classwork on the stream. That means that whatever I post on the classwork tab will also post on the stream. You have the option of how you want that to appear. I have it hidden, which means that what I post on the classwork only goes on the classwork tab. It doesn't cross post on the stream. But you can have it post just short, condensed notifications, or it can post everything in 2 places. I don't necessarily recommend that because sometimes students get confused about where to turn in their work, but that's really a matter of choice for you. Guardian summaries, I talked about that, but it's enabled by default. But then here's the Meet link. This is where I was when I turned it off and on very quickly when Monica was in there. So again, you only want this visible right before you're ready to, if you're using Meet as your option, you only want this visible right before your students are ready to join your meeting. You simply turn it off and you turn it on with a toggle. Sorry, this is off and this is on. You also have the option under the link. When you first come in here, there is no link, so you have to enable the link. But once you do that, you have the option to copy it if you want to, post it somewhere else, or you can reset it, meaning that I'm done. I don't want anybody else to join this meeting. I had some other students in here that weren't mine today. I'm going to reset it so nobody else can use that link. That's it. And then under grading calculations, make no adjustments here. And I want to remind you that grading is done in SchoolMax. That Monica and I are here as your support for this session, but each of you is assigned a T3 trainer. So from our website, which you'll see in just a second once my screen refreshes, from our website, you can get back to find out who your T3 trainer is. And our website is at bit.ly/T3PGCPS. And the About Us page shows who your trainer is. Connect with us on Twitter or feel free to send us an email.